Good afternoon, TCAOA basketball officials. It is Sunday, December 5th. This is vlog video number 3. We've just completed week 1 of the girls basketball season, heading into week 2 of girls, week 1 of boys. Wanted to bring a few notes forward based on my own experiences this week and observations of games that I have watched either live or on replay through the NFHS network. A lot of good things. I saw a lot of good things this week. I talked with Scott. Scott was pleased with what he saw as well. So I think we got off to a good start. Obviously, none of us are in mid-season form, but hopefully all of us are building expectations that we should be in mid-season form sooner rather than later. To that end, I think there's some easy wins that we can pull out of week 1 that I saw happening with relatively high frequency. So again, this isn't a knock against anyone, not calling anyone out specifically. These were just observations that I saw during the first week. And again, there's some things here that I'm just as guilty of as anyone else. And we're not here to say who did what or where they were when they did it. It's just a matter of implementing strategies as we continue to move forward through the season. So the first point here, okay. So prior to the game starting, whoever the R is on the game, and this is 2-person, 3-person, doesn't matter. Whoever the R is on the game should be talking with the clock operator prior to each game. The reason for this is to remind the clock operator to buzz the horn every time a player has reported for substitution. Games that I have personally officiated this week, we had probably about a 60 to 70% success rate of clock operators remembering to buzz when there was a new player at the table. Other games that I saw on replay, I would say it was probably 50%, 60%. So we have to remember, not only are we not in mid-season form, but the personnel at the table are not in mid-season form either. So it's important to cover these ideas before the game starts. And the reason being is because you'll see my next couple of bullet points are about substitutions as well. So if we're not telling them or reminding them, I should say, before the game that we need a buzzer before a player, a substitute enters the game, it's going to be necessary. And officials should be aware if players are coming in the game without being beckoned in by an official, I would get that as early in the game as possible, have them wait at the table, and then let them know that we need everyone to wait until an official brings you into the game to substitute. On Friday nights, my Friday night game, we pulled everyone together that was on the court, all 10 players, and said, ladies, just a reminder that we need you to wait for an official to beckon you into the game before you run onto the court, because we need to do a good job of watching players coming in and going out and keeping track of that. Okay. So the next one kind of segues right into that. Officials need to be watching players coming in and off the court during dead balls to ensure that all substitutions are legal. The other thing, and this happened to me in both games that I officiated last week, we need to make sure that the scorekeepers, the people keeping the book, are aware of every substitution that's entering the game. There were a few times where players were pretty much running right off the bench. They would take maybe 2 steps towards the table and then run right into the game. And it's one of our purposes in that substitution transaction is to ensure that each player has reported to the table and the books have accounted for those players entering the game. So please make sure, especially if you see a player, again, not reporting all the way to the table and pausing at the table when they check in, to have them go back to the table, check in, and then bring them into the game. And the reason that's important is, again, because if there's an issue with the books, we want to make sure that they catch it right away and it doesn't permeate for a quarter or 2 quarters. Officials should be paying attention during timeouts, as substitutions are not allowed after the first warning horn to end the timeout has been sounded. This is something that I saw a few times in the games that I watched, where we would have a timeout, everyone would be on the sidelines, players would report to substitute maybe 10 to 15 seconds into the timeout. They would come back, the timeout would continue on for another 30 to 45 seconds, and then the first warning horn would sound, and then another player would go to the table to report into the game. After that first warning horn sounds, that player who wants to substitute into the game has to wait at the table for the next dead ball after the timeout is over. So the timeout ends, play resumes, first dead ball, that substitute that tried to report after the first warning horn, that's when they can come into the game for the first time. Okay, so make sure that as you are going to the sideline to let a team know that the first warning horn has sounded and we are getting ready to start the game, be sure to keep your eye on the table. Okay, there's really no need to look into the player's huddle. What I always do is I tweet the whistle, tell the team that it's the first warning horn, but the entire time I have my eyes on the table to make sure there's no substitute for either team that's reporting to the table. So just keep in mind that if it's after the first warning horn, after a timeout, the player will need to wait until the first dead ball after play resumes to enter the game. This is a big one. Watch shooting motions of players during pregame warmups. And I know I talked about this, I believe, during the mechanics walkthrough that we did at the Y maybe about 6 weeks ago, and I talked about it in one of my other trainings, but I can't advise this enough. And I will just give you my own experience. So on Friday, the game that I was officiating, there was a girl who would catch the ball with both feet on the ground, take a very small hop step, again, with landing on both feet, and then take her jump shot, right? Again, we need to make sure that we are calling those violations effectively. So if I hadn't paid attention during warmups to that player's shooting motion, right, that player's tendencies when she caught the ball and was going to take a set jump shot, I wouldn't have known that there was this extra hop, that there was this extra small jump stop that was happening before she took her shot. Now, again, it was very minimal, but it was clear that both feet were coming off the ground to do that extra jump stop prior to shooting. Okay, so that's why I say it's important to watch players during pregame warmups so that you get an idea of what their shooting motion, or maybe not even their shooting motion, but what their catching and shooting motion is. Other things that I saw during pregame warmups, we had a young lady who had a tendency to get her hand under the ball while she was dribbling every once in a while. So that was something that we as a crew kept our eye on during the game, and I believe we actually called it once or twice on her. But it just gives you little things to watch for, because I know me personally, the first time something happens, like let's just take that extra jump stop into, let's talk about that. That extra jump stop happens during the game. I'm probably going to miss that call the first time, because by the time I process what just happened, the ball is going through the hoop, bouncing off the rim, or something else has happened completely. And the play is too far along for me to, again, be able to process, okay, an extra jump stop just happened. Was it legal or illegal? It was illegal. Again, by that time, the ball's in a completely different atmosphere in terms of the game's situation. So that's why I put so much emphasis on the value and the need to watch players as they warm up, to find those idiosyncrasies prior to the game happening so that you're ready for them. When they do happen, you can get it right away and hopefully prevent that activity from happening throughout the rest of the game. And then finally, continue to address suboptimal spectator behavior, including student sections. So again, I hearken back to the games that I did last week. I can think of a couple of times where we had to tell an athletic director or game management, whoever was on hand, that we needed them to keep an eye on their student section, because their student section was carrying on very audibly, questioning our calls so that the whole gym could hear what was going on. And, that's not behavior we need to tolerate. But we don't tolerate that from players. We don't tolerate that from coaches. We certainly shouldn't tolerate it from spectators or from student sections. So anytime a spectator, including students, get a little vocal, I would encourage you to find game management and have them keep an eye on the situation. I know student sections are sometimes fall outside of the norm in terms of behavior, and it's always fun watching the students interact and have fun during the game. But at the same time, we shouldn't have the expectation that students are going to be students and they are allowed to show us up as officials. So I'm certainly not advocating for rabbit ears, because I think we need to be focused on the game at hand in and of itself. But when it starts to become apparent that everyone in the gym can hear their perceived outrage, that's when we need to nip that behavior in the bud. Great first week, everyone. Again, I officiated a couple games. I've watched probably 10 or 12 games on replay. Really like what I've seen. Again, I'm recording this about 3:30 in the afternoon on Sunday, December 5th, which means we've got about 8.5 hours left for people to get their summaries into me for MIG status, watching the online training videos that we have posted on our YouTube channel. Any questions, feel free to email me, talk to Scott, talk to Jason. Another reminder too, anytime you have an issue with spectators, fans, coaches, players, anything like that, please do not be afraid to contact me, contact Scott, Jason, Ed, whoever you feel most comfortable with. Let us know, and we will take care of it within 10 minutes. I was contacted by an official yesterday about some suboptimal spectator behavior, which I'm glad that they reached out to me, because I was able to get in contact with Scott very quickly. We figured it out, we got it addressed, and hopefully that official doesn't have to experience anything like that again this season. So we, as I always say, we're losing officials faster, much faster than we're adding them. So it's important for us to take sportsmanship into account and make it a point of emphasis throughout the entire season. Other than that, again, thank you very much, everyone. Hope that everyone had as good of a first week as I did, and good luck as girls continue this week and boys get kick-started. So take care. See you next week.